that paperwork would exist. And if it doesn't exist, then you're talking about something far more serious than administrative confusion. You're talking about a conspiracy that would involve multiple people breaking multiple federal laws. And that is the crossroads at which our investigation currently stands. Are we looking at a series of bizarre coincidences, family trauma, and the natural secrecy that follows a massive scandal? Or are we looking at the edges of something unprecedented, a scenario where the public conviction and sentencing of Joshua Duggar is real, but the nature of his incarceration is not what it seems? This is where we need your help. This is a call to action. If you have any information, if you are a former corrections officer, a former friend of the family, a resident of Washington County or near Seagoville, Texas, who has seen something unusual, you need to reach out. You can contact us through the secure email listed in the description below. We protect our sources with the utmost confidentiality. No detail is too small. A strange vehicle, an overheard conversation, a piece of paperwork that didn't look right. You could be the key to unlocking the next chapter of this story. But our investigation doesn't stop with tips. In part 2 of this documentary series, we will dive deeper. We will be examining the specific timeline of Josh Duggar's transfers, comparing it to BOP protocols. We will be taking a forensic look at the business holdings of Jim Bob Duggar, following the money trails that our source alluded to. And we will be seeking official comment, not just from the Duggar family spokespeople, but from the Bureau of Prisons itself, pressing them on these specific claims of irregularity. Will they respond? Or will their silence speak volumes? The story of the Duggars has always been a parable for our times. A story about image versus reality, about faith versus fraud, about family loyalty versus moral truth. It has played out on our television screens for years. But now, we believe the most critical chapter may be playing out off-screen, in the shadows of the penal system and the whispered conversations of a fractured family. This is not the end. This is only the beginning of our probe. We have laid out the shocking claim. We have shown you the anomalies. We have given you the motives. The question now is, what is the truth? And how far are people willing to go to conceal it? Do not miss what comes next. The twists in this case are deeper and darker than any television producer could ever imagine. This is real life. And real life, sometimes, is the most terrifying story of all. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share this video. Discuss it in the comments below. What do you think is happening? But keep the discussion respectful. We are dealing with real people and serious allegations. Your engagement tells YouTube this is a story worth watching, worth investigating. It gives us the platform to keep digging. We will be back soon with part 2. Until then, keep your eyes open. And question everything. Welcome back. When we left off, we presented you with a claim so audacious, it challenges the very foundation of a closed case. The claim that Joshua Duggar, the convicted former reality TV star serving a 12-year federal sentence, may not be experiencing his incarceration in the way the public has been led to believe. That through a combination of fear, influence, and procedural gray areas, a separate reality might have been constructed for him. A reality where the walls of FCI Seagoville are not the only boundaries of his world. We heard from a source close to the family who spoke of internal rifts, of financial maneuvering, and of a terrifying silence surrounding Josh's actual whereabouts. We examined the oddities, the family's blank public statements, Anna Duggar's isolated life in Texas, the curious lack of sightings. We posed the question, coincidence, or conspiracy? Tonight, we push further. We follow the evidence. We track the timeline. And we seek answers from the one entity that should have them all, the United States Bureau of Prisons. This is Duggar News, the shocking claim Josh Duggar escaped prison, and the family that's finally speaking out. Part 2, The Paper Trail. If you're just joining us, you are walking into the middle of a live investigation. You need to go back and watch Part 1 immediately. The link is in the description and pinned at the top of the comments. What we uncover tonight builds directly on those foundations. And to make sure you don't miss the conclusion, Because there will be a conclusion, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. This story is unfolding in real time, and your subscription is your front row seat to the truth. Our first task in part 2 was to move from anonymous allegations to verifiable facts. We needed to construct an ironclad timeline of Josh Duggar's journey through the federal system and hold it up against standard protocol. Where do the gaps appear? Where does the official record become fuzzy? Let's rewind to the moment of sentencing, May 25, 2022. Duggar is sentenced in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He is remanded to custody immediately. Standard procedure for a high-profile inmate convicted of his charges would involve initial placement in a local county jail, likely Washington County Detention Center, awaiting designation to a federal facility. Our research and court documents confirm he was held at Washington County for processing. This period is our first point of scrutiny. Our source claimed the maneuvering began early. We filed a public records request with Washington County for visitor logs and communication records for Joshua Duggar during his stay there. The response was telling. They provided a heavily redacted document showing only his booking and release dates. All visitor names were blacked out, citing privacy and security concerns. Unusual? Perhaps not individually, but it's our first encounter with a wall of silence. On June 29, 2022, the BOP inmate locator is updated. Joshua Duggar is now listed at FCI Seagoville in Texas. The public assumes he was transported directly there. But our source alleged movements during this transit phase. We contacted a private investigator with expertise in inmate transportation. He explained that federal prisoners are typically moved via the Justice Prisoner and Alien Transportation System, JPATS, colloquially known as Con Air. It's a tightly scheduled, multi-stop flight system. Inmates can spend days or even weeks in transit, housed in various county jails or federal transfer centers along the route. The public BOP locator often lags during these periods, sometimes showing the previous facility until the inmate is fully processed at the new one. This, the PI told us, is a known blackout period. A period where an inmate's location is administrative vapor. Could that window be extended or exploited? Theoretically, he said, if paperwork was misfiled or a medical hold was placed, an inmate could be held in a non-BOP limbo, a contract medical facility or a secluded county jail unit, for longer than usual. The record would be a mess. It would take someone on the inside to both orchestrate and cover it up. Our source's core claim revolves around periods where Duggar was not physically within Seagoville's walls, despite being listed as in custody there. We began monitoring the BOP locator daily. For months, it was static. Then, in early October of last year, it glitched. For approximately 36 hours, the status for Joshua Duggar changed from in custody to not in BOP custody. It caused a minor firestorm on forums before reverting. The BOP never issued a statement. A technical error? Almost certainly. But in the context of our investigation, it was a stark reminder, the digital facade is fragile. More compelling than a website glitch are the human sources. We expanded our outreach, seeking current or former employees of FCI Seagoville. Through secure channels, we connected with an individual who worked in the administrative offices at Seagoville until late last year. They wished to remain anonymous for fear of professional reprisal. They did not confirm our source's wildest claims, but what they did share was profoundly unsettling. This former employee stated that Joshua Duggar was, in fact, processed into Seagoville. He was placed in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, solitary confinement, immediately upon arrival, standard for high-profile sex offenders for their own protection. But then, the employee said, things became irregular. He'd be in the SHU for a few weeks, then he'd be gone from the unit log for a week or 10 days. No notation of a transfer to another prison. The log would just have him marked as temp out or admin move. When I asked a supervisor about it once, I was told it was above our pay grade and to focus on my own work. The employee described one specific instance where Duggar's medical file was requested by an official from outside the BOP, someone from, as they recalled, Health and Human Services or something like that. The request was expedited and handled outside normal channels. It was weird, the employee said. It felt like he had a separate set of rules. Like he was a ghost inmate. There, but not there. This testimony is a critical piece. It corroborates the idea of irregular movements. It suggests a departure from standard protocol. A ghost inmate. That phrase echoed in our minds. Simultaneously, we turned to the financial angle. Our sources' claim of a financial pipeline needed verification. Jim Bob Duggar's empire is labyrinthine. Using publicly available records from Arkansas and Texas Secretaries of State, property deeds, and business filings, our research team began mapping transactions. The pattern is complex, but a trend emerged. In the 6 months following Josh's sentencing, several of Jim Bob's LLCs engaged in a series of rapid-fire property sales and purchases. Not unusual for a real estate investor. However, the flow of capital was distinctive. Large sums from sales were funneled not into new, income-producing properties immediately, but into a trust fund with a notably vague name, the Family Stewardship Trust. This trust, established years ago, became remarkably active. More intriguing were several wire transfers from this trust to a law firm in Oklahoma City, not directly involved in Josh's criminal appeal. This firm specializes in administrative law and federal regulatory compliance. Why would the Duggars need such a firm post-conviction? Our legal analyst suggests possible areas: navigating BOP regulations, filing grievances, or dealing with the Federal Tort Claims Act. But the amounts listed, in the high five-figure range, suggest a major, ongoing engagement, not a simple consultation. Then, we found an anomaly. A quarterly disbursement from the trust to a private security company based in Fort Smith, Arkansas, with satellite offices in Dallas, Texas. The stated purpose on the filing was consulting services. We called the company, posing as a potential client seeking executive protection. In our conversation, they listed their services: risk assessment, secure transportation, residential security details. When asked if they ever provided services related to family members of incarcerated individuals, the representative paused and said, "We provide discrete solutions for sensitive family situations. We'd have to discuss the specifics in a private consultation." It's not proof, but it's a thread. A thread connecting Duggar family funds to a company that moves people securely and discreetly. Now, let's address the family speaks element head-on. Our initial source provided what they claimed were paraphrased conversations. We needed more. We began reaching out to the siblings who have publicly distanced themselves, Jill Dillard, Jinger Vualo, and their husbands. We received polite no comments through representatives. They are bound by their own realities, book deals, media contracts, and likely, non-disclosure agreements with the family that are ironclad. But the silence from them on this specific topic was, again, notable. They speak freely about their trauma, about the IBLP, about their parents' control. But they do not speak about Josh's current situation. It's the one area of radio silence. However, through a separate channel, we made contact with a former member of the Duggars church circle in Springdale. This person left the church years ago but maintains casual contact with some extended family members. They relate a story they heard secondhand from a cousin. This cousin was present at a large family gathering after Josh was sentenced, but before he was transported to Texas. The conversation, as relayed, turned to the future. Jim Bob was reportedly trying to reassure the family. The cousin recalled Jim Bob saying, and this is a direct quote as remembered, "The system is not going to have the final word on Josh's rehabilitation. We are exploring every avenue for his restoration and safety. God's justice is not man's justice." A generic statement of faith? Or a cryptic hint that the system, the BOP, would not be the sole arbiter of Josh's daily life? But the most significant development in our Family Speaks investigation came just 2 weeks ago. We received an encrypted email. It contained an audio file. A short, clearly surreptitious recording. The quality is poor, with background noise. But the voices are identifiable. It's a conversation between two people we believe to be two of the younger Duggar brothers, recorded in what sounds like a garage or workshop. We have had the audio forensically analyzed for authenticity. Initial results indicate no evidence of digital splicing or AI generation. We will not play the full audio here to protect the identities of the speakers, but we will provide a transcript of the key section. 1. Can you confirm Joshua Duggar is currently physically housed at FCI Seagoville? 2. Has Joshua Duggar ever been part of a non-standard housing arrangement, such as a contract facility for medical or psychological treatment, while in BOP custody? 3. Can you detail any periods in the last 18 months where he was temporarily removed from FCI Seagoville for any reason, and where he was housed during those periods? 4. Has the BOP ever conducted an internal review of his housing status due to irregularities? We sent this to the BOP's Public Affairs Office. We followed up daily for a week. Finally, we received a response. It is a masterpiece of bureaucratic non-answer. I will read it verbatim. The Bureau of Prisons is committed to ensuring the safety, security, and orderly operation of our facilities. For privacy, safety, and security reasons, we do not discuss specific housing details or internal protocols for any inmate. We can confirm that inmate Joshua J. Duggar, register number XXXXXX, is in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons at FCI Seagoville. The BOP complies with all applicable laws and regulations in the custody and care of all inmates. Notice what they did not say. They did not deny non-standard housing. They did not deny temporary removals. They hid behind the blanket statements of privacy, safety, and security. They confirmed he is in their custody and at FCI Seagoville. But in the nuanced language of bureaucracy, in the custody of, at FCI Seagoville, could be interpreted as his official designation, not his permanent, physical location. It is a confirmation that invites more questions than it answers. So, where does this leave us? We have moved from a shocking claim to a maze of plausible deniability, financial curiosities, and first-hand accounts of irregularity. We do not have a smoking gun. We do not have a photograph of Josh Duggar outside a prison fence. But we have something perhaps more important, a preponderance of anomalies that point to a system operating in the shadows. Let's synthesize the narrative that the evidence suggests, not as proven fact, but as the working hypothesis of our investigation. Joshua Duggar was sentenced and entered the BOP system. Due to his notoriety and the specific nature of his crime, he was deemed at extreme risk within general population. This legitimate concern may have been the catalyst. Leveraging connections, legal expertise, and financial resources, individuals acting on behalf of the Duggar family may have pushed for, and potentially achieved, a highly unusual custodial arrangement. This arrangement could involve prolonged stays in protective administrative segregation, periodic transfers to secure, private medical or behavioral facilities, possibly under the guise of psychological evaluation or treatment, all while maintaining his official designation at FCI Seagoville. The purpose? To isolate him completely from the prison ecosystem, to control all access to him, and to manage the narrative of his rehabilitation internally. In this scenario, the BOP's confirmation is technically true, he is in their custody, and Seagoville is his home facility, but the lived reality is one of extraordinary and secretive exception. The alternative hypothesis, of course, is that all of this is the result of overanalysis, coincidence, and the natural secrecy surrounding a traumatic family event. That the former employee is disgruntled, the financial moves are benign, the family audio is taken out of context, and the BOP is simply following standard, if rigid, protocols. Our job is not to decide for you. Our job is to present the investigation. But the sheer volume of red flags cannot be ignored. This brings us to our final act, and our most direct call to action yet. The truth is out there. It's in documents we haven't seen. It's in the testimony of people who are afraid to speak. We need your eyes and ears. If you are a current or former BOP employee, at Seagoville or any transfer center, and you have seen documentation or procedures related to Joshua Duggar that struck you as unusual, contact us. If you work or have worked at a private, secure treatment facility in Texas, Oklahoma, or Arkansas that holds federal contracts, and you have information, reach out. If you are a resident of Seagoville, Texas, or the areas around any federal transfer center, and you have witnessed unusual security movements or vehicles, let us know. If you have any other information, no matter how small, use the secure contact methods in the description. This is how investigative journalism works in the digital age. It's a collaboration between journalists and a watchful public. Your tip could be the one that breaks this case wide open. For now, the story continues. Joshua Duggar official release date is projected for 2032. But what will the intervening years look like? Will he serve them in the relentless monotony of a prison unit? Or in a series of controlled, secluded environments, shielded from the consequences his sentence was meant to impart? The question of justice is not just about the length of a sentence, but about the nature of the punishment. If our investigation's hypothesis has any merit, it raises profound ethical and legal questions about privilege, influence, and the equal application of the law. The Duggar saga is a modern American epic. From TV glory to scandal, from a courtroom conviction to the whispers we are uncovering now. It is a story about the collapse of an image and the desperate, perhaps limitless, measures to salvage something from the wreckage. We are not done. This channel is committed to this story. We will follow every lead. We will file more public records requests. We will continue to seek definitive proof. The journey for truth is a marathon, not a sprint. Your role is vital. Like this video if you want to see part 3. Subscribe and hit the bell to be the first to know when we have a major breakthrough. Share this video on all platforms. Discuss it responsibly. The more attention this investigation gets, the harder it becomes for shadows to remain dark. We leave you tonight with this final thought. In the world of the Duggars, appearance was everything. They built an empire on the appearance of perfection. When that cracked, they managed the appearance of repentance and accountability. Now, with Josh behind bars, the appearance is one of justice served. But our investigation begs the question, is this the final, grim reality? Or is it merely the most convincing appearance of all? Stay vigilant. Question the stories you're told. And we will see you in the next update. What if everything you've been told is a carefully constructed lie? What if the bars of a federal prison weren't strong enough to hold one of America's most infamous reality TV sons? We've been led to believe that Joshua Duggar is serving his time, far from the public eye, his story fading into a grim footnote. But tonight, we have to tell you a different story. A story so shocking, it challenges the official narrative at every single turn. We have uncovered claims, allegations from sources close to the Duggar family, that suggest Josh Duggar is not where the authorities say he is. That he may have, in some form, escaped the confines of his sentence. And for the first time, family members are allegedly speaking out, breaking years of silence with whispers of a cover-up that goes higher and deeper than anyone could have imagined. This is not just a tabloid headline. This is an investigation into power, secrecy, and the lengths to which a family might go to protect its own. Welcome to a special documentary series. Welcome to Duggar News, the shocking claim Josh Duggar escaped prison, and the family that's finally speaking out. Part 1. Before we go any deeper, you need to do something for me. If you're fascinated by stories where the truth is stranger than fiction, where reality TV crashes into real-world scandal, you need to be part of this investigation. Hit that subscribe button right now, and slam that notification bell. We are releasing this in parts, and you do not want to miss a single twist, a single revelation, in what may be the most explosive story to come out of the Duggar world in years. Your subscription fuels this deep dive. It tells YouTube this is important journalism. So subscribe, and let's begin. To understand the magnitude of this claim, we must first revisit the gilded cage of the Duggar family. The world first met the Duggars through the shimmering, sanitized lens of TLC's 19 Kids and Counting. They were the mega family from Arkansas, proponents of a strict religious philosophy, living a life that seemed plucked from a different era. The parents, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, presided over a household built on discipline, modesty, and the unwavering eye of the camera. And at the center, as the eldest son, was Joshua. Josh. The firstborn. The trailblazer. The one who would, by the family's design, set an example for the 18 siblings who followed. But even then, cracks appeared in the facade. Long before the federal charges, before the shocking trial, there was the initial scandal. In 2015, the world learned of the past. The alleged molestation within the home, covered by a blanket of internal discipline and spiritual guidance. The famous Fox News interview, where Megyn Kelly grilled Jim, Bob and Michelle, and where a tearful Josh, alongside his wife Anna, gave a public apology. It was a seismic event, shattering the perfect family image. TLC cancelled 19 Kids and Counting. But the Duggars adapted. They pivoted. Counting On was born, focusing on the older siblings, but with the shadow of Josh always looming, a ghost they tried desperately to keep off screen. The narrative became one of a fallen brother, a man who had strayed, been disciplined, and was, according to the family, on a path of redemption and accountability under the watchful eyes of the church and his family. But that narrative was about to face its ultimate test. Because the past was not just about personal failings, it was about to intersect with the cold, unforgiving machinery of federal law. In April 2021, the other shoe dropped. Josh Duggar was arrested by Homeland Security investigations. The charges were not related to his past familial actions, but something that chilled the nation to its core: receipt and possession of child sexual abuse material. The details that emerged during the trial were harrowing. Graphic, unspeakable. Evidence of a double life, hidden behind the polite smile and the family man persona. The trial itself was a media circus, a stark courtroom drama contrasting the Duggars' wholesome image with the grim reality of the evidence. Key witnesses took the stand, including a family friend. But the most pivotal moment came from within the family itself. His sister, Jill Duggar Dillard, and her husband Derek, sat on the prosecution's side of the courtroom. A physical and symbolic break from the family block. Jill would later speak of the immense pressure, the turmoil. Other siblings remained publicly supportive of their parents, but the fracture was now visible, a canyon running right through the foundation of the Duggar dynasty. In December 2021, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty on both counts. The image of Josh Duggar, stone-faced, being led away in handcuffs, is burned into public memory. In May 2022, he was sentenced to 151 months, over 12.5 years, in federal prison. He was remanded to FCI Seagoville in Texas, a low-security facility. The story, for most of the world, was over. Justice served. A chapter closed. The Duggars would continue, the show went on in a diminished form, and Josh would fade into obscurity behind bars. Or so we all thought. But the internet, and the world of dedicated followers of this saga, never fully let go. The Duggar snark communities, the forums, the investigators, they kept watching. And anomalies began to surface. Small ones at first. A lack of recent Bureau of Prisons mugshots that matched typical update schedules. Unconfirmed rumors on obscure message boards about transfers that didn't appear in the official BOP inmate locator. The official BOP page for Joshua Duggar remained static, listing him as in custody at Seagoville. But as any investigator will tell you, the official record is only one piece of the puzzle. This is where our investigation begins. Approximately 6 weeks ago, our team was contacted by a source. This individual claimed to have close, ongoing ties to several members of the extended Duggar family network in and around Washington County, Arkansas. They did not come forward for money, they refused any payment. They came forward, they claimed, out of a growing sense of unease. What they alleged was not that Josh Duggar had tunneled out of prison like a movie villain. Their claim was more nuanced, and in some ways, more frightening. They alleged that the reality of Josh Duggar's incarceration did not match the paperwork. The claim breaks down into several disturbing parts. First, the source alleged that shortly after being sentenced, but before his final designation to Seagoville, a complex legal and logistical maneuver was initiated. This maneuver, involving a web of connections our source only vaguely alluded to as family allies in the system, was designed to create a buffer of administrative confusion. The second part of the claim is where it becomes truly shocking. The source stated that for certain periods, particularly around times of reported medical issues or administrative segregation, Josh Duggar was not physically present within the secure perimeter of FCI Seacoville, or any other BOP facility listed for him. He was, allegedly, being moved under a form of protective custody that operated outside standard inmate tracking protocols. But why? And to where? The third part of the claim provides a motive, and it's one that ties directly back to the family's deepest fears. The source claimed that the Duggar parents, Jim Bob and Michelle, were terrified beyond reason of what would happen to Josh in general population. Not just from other inmates, but from the very real threat of vigilantism. Their famous son, convicted of such a reviled crime, would be a target every single second. The fear, according to the source, was not just for his safety, but for the potential of him being coerced into giving interviews, making statements, or revealing more family secrets under duress. The allegation is that this fear drove a relentless, behind-the-scenes campaign to create a unique, and perhaps unofficial, arrangement. Now, you might be thinking, this is impossible. The Federal Bureau of Prisons is a monolithic, strict system. An inmate doesn't just slip through the cracks. And that's a fair point. That's why we initially treated this with extreme skepticism. A lone source with a wild claim? It's the stuff of baseless conspiracy theories. But then, we started to cross-reference. We began digging into the public records, the timelines, and the strange silences. Let's talk about the family's public behavior. Since Josh's incarceration, the public comments from Jim Bob, Michelle, and most of the siblings have been curiously void of any specifics about visiting him, about his well-being inside, about the mundane realities of having a family member in prison. It's been a blanket of "we pray for him" and "we believe in the justice system." But contrast that with the behavior of other families of high-profile inmates. There are usually snippets, a mother talking about a visit, a wife mentioning a phone call, a discussion of the prison food, the routine. For the Duggars, that vacuum is absolute. It's as if he vanished into a black hole. One could argue it's privacy. But for a family that has lived their lives publicly for over a decade, this sudden, total silence is deafening. Then, there's Anna Duggar, Josh's wife. Anna has remained steadfast, a picture of loyalty that has baffled and concerned outsiders in equal measure. She moved herself and the children to Texas to be closer to the prison. Publicly, she is waiting. But our source made a pointed claim about Anna as well. They alleged that Anna's moves and her social media silence are part of a theater of normalcy. That her presence in Texas is less about regular visits and more about maintaining a geographic alibi, a plausible reason for her isolated existence. They pointed to a curious lack of independent sightings. No paparazzi shots of her entering or leaving the prison visiting center. No confirmed reports from other inmates' families of seeing her there. In the age of smartphones, where every celebrity-adjacent person is photographed, Anna Duggar's life in Texas has been remarkably, suspiciously unobserved. We also began to look at the financial angle. Jim Bob Duggar, by all accounts, is a shrewd real estate investor and businessman. The family's wealth, while not flaunted, is significant. Legal defenses are expensive. Federal appeals are astronomically expensive. But what about off-the-books expenses? Our source hinted at a financial pipeline that wasn't just funding lawyers, but funding something else. Security? Private transportation? Accommodations? We are not alleging we have proof of this, yet. But we are following the money. Public property records show a complex web of LLCs and trusts linked to the Duggar family. Transactions that, on the surface, look like normal business. But the pattern, when mapped, shows a liquidity, a movement of assets, that spiked around key dates in Josh's legal timeline. Coincidence? Perhaps. But in an investigation, there are no coincidences, only clues. And then, we come to the most explosive part of our source's claim. The family speaks part of our title. Our source did not just give us second-hand financial rumors. They provided what they claim are excerpts from private conversations. Conversations they witnessed or were told about by multiple parties. These excerpts suggest a deep, fracturing rift within the Duggar sibling group over exactly this issue, over what is really happening with Josh. According to the source, one sibling, who they refused to name for fear of retribution, allegedly confronted Jim Bob directly in the months after the sentencing. This sibling, haunted by their own past and the family's history of covering up truth, demanded to know the full story. They allegedly asked, point blank, "Is Josh really in prison, or is he somewhere else? Are we lying to the world again?" The response from Jim Bob, as relayed by our source, was not a denial. It was, allegedly, a furious deflection. A warning about family loyalty, about spiritual warfare, about not trusting the systems of man. But the question, once asked, could not be unasked. The source claims this sibling, and at least 2 others, have become internal exiles. They are still part of the family publicly, but privately, they are frozen out of all decision-making. They are kept on an information diet. They are, in the source's words, treated like security risks. This aligns with what we already see publicly. The clear divide between siblings like Jill and Jinger, who have written books and done interviews critiquing the family's power structure, and those who remain firmly in Jim Bob's orbit. But our source claims this divide is not just about the past. It's actively about the present. It's about what is happening right now with Josh. Another alleged conversation involves a different sibling expressing deep concern to their spouse. They reportedly said, "I can't live with this secret. It's worse than before. At least then it was our family. Now it's the whole government." A chilling statement, if true. Suggesting that the perceived cover-up has escalated to a level that terrifies even those raised in a culture of secrecy. We took these allegations to a former federal corrections officer, who agreed to speak with us on condition of anonymity. We did not feed him the theory. We simply asked, is it possible? Could an inmate, especially a high-profile one, be logged as in custody while spending significant time outside a facility? His answer was illuminating. The BOP system is vast and has protocols for everything, he said. But protocols are run by people. In cases of extreme protective custody, for inmates who are at risk of being killed, snitches, law enforcement, high-profile sex offenders, movements can be highly classified. They might be taken to a special housing unit at another prison, or even a non-BOP facility for interviews or medical treatment. The record might just say in transit or segregated 4 days. It creates a gray area. Could that gray area be exploited or manipulated by someone with inside influence? I've seen the system work correctly 99.9% of the time. But I've also seen strange things happen. Never something of this magnitude, but the potential for a gap exists, especially if there was a documented threat that justified extraordinary measures. He then added a crucial point. But here's the thing. The BOP is a bureaucracy. It loves paperwork. Even for protective custody, there is a trail. A digital footprint. If this inmate was ever not in a BOP facility, there would have to be a court order, an interagency agreement, something.